Well, it'll surprise no one at all that it's pretty good. I mean, one of the things that you know about Spielberg is that he can turn his hand to anything if he feels passionate about it. And when you look at his, his filmography, which goes from, family dramas, science fiction, horror, comedy, true stories, spy thrillers, and now musical, in every single case, technically very, very adept. And I don't say that incidentally as somebody used that phrase the other day. They were talking about something. They said, "Oh yeah, I hear the technicals are good," which was always something that was used to criticize something. The technicals are good means the film isn't good, but technically it's good. But technically, this is a very good rendition. So right from the beginning, with the opening that looks like a bomb site, it looks like an outtake from Saving Private Ryan, and with the great big wrecking ball. As he said himself, essentially, I mean, there have been changes made, but they're not changes that are going to alienate an audience that loved the original. I mean, in fact, one of the things that's remarkable about the film is how much a lot of it feels like the original. And again, I don't say that as a criticism, but it's it's a modern film, particularly in the casting, and I think the casting is really interesting, and they've really done something that needed to be done there. But the film does have an old-fashioned feel. So in the same way that it's set at a particular time, the filmmaking looks like it's set at that particular time. It's not just to do with the palette of the film, because actually the palette for the first 25, 30 minutes is fairly dour. And it's only really when they get into the dance hall standoffs that everything suddenly becomes this kind of explosion of colour. But the film looks like it's from the period that it's meant to be in, which is a kind of clever thing to pull off. I think that in terms of the central casting, what they've managed to do is to combine newcomers with, sort of established talent. And the interesting thing is that in many ways, like, for example, I think Rachel Zegler is terrific. I think she's really good as Maria. I think she really, really holds her own. Ariana DeBose, as you heard from that interview, I mean, is a kind of force of nature on screen. She's a brilliant dancer, and she's a real presence and absolutely at the heart of the movie. There's Rita Moreno, who's kind of the genetic link between the old version and the new version. And what they've done there in reincarnating the Doc's drugstore role, and then what they do with someone, there's a really interesting thought process going on about, okay, how can we tilt this slightly? And there's an interesting thing as well on the subject of tilting, that the camera angles for the film occasionally do that 45-degree tilt, that's very much kind of the what you think. When you said that, the red poster for West Side Story, if you remember, it's kind of the Z shapes of the fire escapes, and
in black.
In black against the red. And that 45-degree tilt is very much something which we associate with West Side Story. It's something turned on an angle, not like turned on its side completely, like, for example, in The Heights, in which they do the wall walking thing, but just tilted in that way that feels like a kind of retro, suddenly, look, this is happening now, and it's exciting, and it's angular, and it's odd. I have to confess, if I have some criticisms, it would be largely, I thought Ansel Elgort was very disappointing. I don't know how you feel about it.
I thought he was great.
Did you?
I was amazed at the quality of his voice.
Oh, right.
That's what I thought.
Okay. I thought he was a bit Tony Hadley.
I quite like a bit of Spandau.
And therein lies the difference between. I like Spandau.
I think he's better than Tony Hadley.
Okay, I think that he's the weak link in the chain, and I think that he's the thing that for me is a bit of a spanner in the works.
I thought he was Brando.
Okay. But which Brando are we talking? Are we talking Island of Dr. Moreau Brando? Are we talking The Formula Brando? Or are we talking did you really think Ansel Elgort was Brando?
He looked a bit like Brando. When you think about it, when you imagine his face, there you go, squidgy.
Okay, I would never in a million years have thought that Ansel Elgort looked anything like Brando, and I'm now struggling to do that kind of police photo fit thing. Yeah. No, but I'm not saying you're wrong, because the thing is, we have a different opinion about this.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption, I was thinking, oh, it's Ansel Elgort. He can't sing. And then he started to sing, and I thought, oh, and I was thinking, I'm sure he must be. This is an amazing lip sync routine.
No, and then you go to the soundtrack album, and it is him, and yeah.
No, absolutely. I was impressed. That's all. So
Okay, well, that's very interesting because I thought that Rachel Zegler was great. I thought that that Ariane DeBose was great. I thought that I thought Rita Moreno's Somewhere was fantastic. I did think that Ansel Elgort was the weak link in the chain. So I'd be interested to know when listeners, when listeners have seen the film this week, whether they are Team Mark or Team Simon.
no, but no, I'm not really a team. I mean, you're the musician, so I'm happy. I was just amazed that he could sing as he could. So,
but he trained as a ballet. I mean, you knew he could dance anyway. And you've seen Baby Driver, like the opening of Baby Driver, in which he literally dances through that first shot. I mean, that is a dance number to all intents and purposes. And of course, it's interesting that the source of Baby Driver is a music video that Edgar Wright made, in which it's the guy dancing in the car and dancing around the car. So I thought that was the one thing that didn't work for me. Other than that, I thought it was pretty solid. I don't think it's his best film in 20 years. I mean, I just don't find that to be the case. I think it's a very solid, very workable, if slightly unremarkable adaptation of a classic.
I thought it was a triumph. I mean, and I say this as someone who's not really.
You're not a musicals fan.
My first reaction is that very impressive opening which you were talking about. Where I imagine it's a drone going over this bomb site that you were talking about. This looks great. This looks great. And then the guys arrive and they start to sing. And I think, why are you singing? Why are you singing? And of course, it's a musical.
It's a musical. That's what happens.
That's what happens. But it still seems, I know, and all that clicky finger stuff. Why are you clicking your fingers? Anyway, but it's a musical. That's why they're clicking their fingers.
You're a jet.
Exactly. So once we got over that, I thought it was a triumph, and I did feel like standing up and applauding.
Good
at the end. Of the Ariana DeBose.
I do think that it's entirely possible that this will bring a whole new audience in.
Which cinemas will be very grateful for.
They will. It's a big cinematic film. I mean, it's wide. It's 239, isn't it? So it's like it's widey wide.
West Wide Story.
West Wide.
In fact, that's what it is.
You're so much better at that than I am. West Wide Story. West Wide Story.
It's a very niche joke.
That's very good.